Hello everyone, my name is Lauren for those of you that don't know me, and I'm diagnosed on the autism spectrum. I was diagnosed with it at a time when it was poorly understood, which was back in 1987, and at that time it was called pervasive developmental disorder. And when Asperger's was introduced into the diagnostics criteria in the spring of 1994, I was given that diagnosis. And I want to talk as brief as possible in this video about my upbringings, and I'm titling this video My Upbringing. Now, my parents were raised at a time when autism was poorly understood. They were born and raised in the 40s and 50s when social acceptance was vital to living, and there was limited technology and very limited knowledge of autism, and any person that acted up in any way was considered to be mean. And even stricter than that, my parents were raised in a very religious area where everyone went to church and believed in moral values. And along came me in 1981 in August, so I was different. And I had all the classic symptoms of what would now be known as a high-functioning autism. And my mom knew that I was different, but, and of course she took me to the doctor, and that's when I was diagnosed in 1987 in February. And for me, they used parenting techniques that they were raised on, and unfortunately, many of those don't work for children on the autism spectrum. My mom has learned better about some things, but it's still taken her time to unlearn the things that she was raised with on dealing with kids with behavioral problems. I was taught the importance of always acting appropriate no matter how I felt. I was also taught to get as good of grades as possible in school. I also got the idea when they started working with me on controlling my emotions that I was not even allowed to have certain thoughts. But that is an unrealistic idea. And I also got the idea that mom and dad didn't want me to date when I was a teenager. But in reality, that wasn't true. But the way they communicated that to me, I didn't understand it. It caused me to misunderstand them as not wanting me to date out of fear of my social disgraces that I had as autistic. And I also knew all my life that I had a bladder problem, but it was not diagnosed until I was 22. I was not allowed to mention that to anyone because supposedly people would look at me as being sexually impure or childish. But I, however, disagree with that, because you can still have stuff like that and not be sexually active. And if you don't let people know occasionally that you have a problem like that, then you may not get services if you qualify for anything. There have been times in my life where I was punished for meltdowns unrealistically, and it only made things worse. And if you listen to my other videos, you will know that I was punished harshly by the school principal in 2nd grade, and it was not pleasant. And there has been times where my mom and dad have taken privileges away from me when I had a really bad meltdown. And I'm very sorry to say, I just don't feel like it worked for me. It only made me feel worse about myself, and it just worsened all anxiety. And when I was 19, my mom gave away my dollhouse out of fear of what people would think about me when we had company. And she truly regrets that, because she has told me that my mom and my dad did their best and they didn't know, and they still can't get certain things out of their head. And I'm trying to teach them stuff the more I learn about autism, because when I was old enough to understand my condition, I researched it. And also, because there was so little in my life growing up that people didn't understand about autism, I was told more times than I can count that I was mean. And that still bothers me to this day, because words can hurt for autistics. That is one of the biggest frustrations I have toward people about in my growing up years, that it's just taken me a hard time to get rid of. And these kinds of issues, I personally feel like, can worsen comorbid disorders in autism, especially if you have obsessive compulsive disorder. And obsessive compulsive disorder thoughts can cause autism burnout. And my strong rote memory causes me to worry excessively. I wanted to try to mention this without trying to hurt anyone's feelings. And also, I'm done with this video, and if you don't care, would you please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing, and I will talk to you all later, and please have a blessed day. Bye.